We've got major news coming in from the Indian Navy. I'm going to go straight to Gaurav Sawant, our Strategic Affairs Editor, to break it for you. Gaurav?
Top-level sources in the Navy and the Ministry of Defence are telling headlines today that Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, the Vice Chief, the Chief of the Western Naval Fleet, he could put in his papers. What sources are telling us, he was waiting for INS Sindhuratna to reach the Mumbai harbour. He wanted to speak to sailors who were on board the submarine, inspect the submarine, and then he's expected to fly to Delhi later today and put in his papers with Admiral DK Joshi, the Chief of Naval Staff, having put in his papers, taking moral responsibility for what happened to Sindhuratna and a series of naval incidents. Some of these incidents, in fact, most of these incidents have taken place on the western seaboard, and Admiral Shekhar Sinha, who is the senior most naval officer after Admiral DK Joshi, he too is taking moral responsibility according to sources. We still haven't heard officially either from Admiral Sinha or from the Ministry of Defence on this, but sources say he's expressed a desire to meet the Defence Minister AK Antony. He too wants to own up moral responsibility for a string of accidents and put in his papers. Now it remains to be seen whether Defence Minister AK Antony would accept that resignation.
You know, Gaurav, we were just talking about Admiral Sinha as the top contender to succeed Admiral Joshi because of his seniority in the naval ranks. But as you said over there, both the senior most officers in the Navy, and one in charge of the Navy itself and one in charge of the Western Command, are now stepping down, or at least in Admiral Sinha, Vice Admiral Sinha's case, announcing planning to step down. An unprecedented situation, but so is the situation that led to this.
Oh, absolutely. If we were to talk about the chain of succession, the chain of command, after Admiral DK Joshi, Admiral Sinha was the senior most officer in the Indian Navy, but the Navy did not choose him to succeed Admiral DK Joshi. The government of India did not choose him. They chose Admiral Dhawan, the Vice Chief, instead to be the acting Chief of Naval Staff. Now, will Admiral Dhawan then, will his name be the only name that will go to the Appointments Committee of the Cabinet for appointment as the next Chief of Naval Staff? That would create a very tricky situation, because Admiral Dhawan, according to sources, does not meet all the QRs to be the next Chief of Naval Staff, especially when it comes to commanding operational fleets. Would it be Shekhar Sinha? It appears very unlikely, because if the Chief of Naval Staff has taken moral responsibility for all these accidents, well, some of that moral responsibility, as Admiral Sinha himself has confided to some of the people close to him, rests on his shoulders. He's called the Grey Eagle. He's the senior most aviator in the Indian Navy. He's a very, very accomplished officer, but unfortunately, like Admiral DK Joshi, again a very accomplished sailor and officer, very, very demanding. They don't forgive. And in this case, clearly, they don't even want to accept to stay in office after these mistakes have been committed. Down the line, who then? Will it be the Eastern Naval Command or the Southern Naval Command? Will their commanders then be made the next Navy Chief? It's a very, very tricky situation, and a lot of permutation and combinations perhaps being looked at this stage. Defence Secretary RK Mathur is preparing a list. This list will be then sent to Raksha Mantri AK Antony, the Defence Minister AK Antony. The Appointments Committee of the Cabinet will have to take a call on who the next Chief of Naval Staff would be.
Gaurav, stay with us. Shiv, our Deputy Editor for Defence, is also on the phone line. Shiv, you recently put together a blog post where you detailed some of what Gaurav was saying, and you were also talking about the other naval officers who might be in the running. Give us a background on some of them.
The story that's breaking first on headlines today is reported by Gaurav Sawant here is basically Shekhar Sinha, the Western Naval Commander, following the leader. If the Navy Chief's position, was found to be untenable by himself in the spate of these accidents, then obviously Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha has deemed it even more untenable for him to remain in service. But like Gaurav has just reported first here on headlines today, it throws the entire succession line out of, completely out of gear for a variety of reasons. Shekhar Sinha happens to be the senior-most Vice Admiral at this time, but our sources have been confirming to us since yesterday that he was never really in the running to be, the next Navy Chief, like Gaurav reported, as a result of, the very negative publicity that has come out from this spate of, incidents under his command. Now, the fact is, at this point of time, Vice Admiral Robin Dovan, the Vice Chief of Naval Staff, is the officiating chief. If you push Shekhar Sinha out of the equation, Vice Admiral Robin Dhawan is the senior most Vice Admiral. He retires on the 31st of March. So if he is made the permanent Navy chief, then his tenure will have to be extended. But like Gaurav also pointed out very importantly, does the Navy or does the MOD really want to make him the permanent Navy chief remains in question. Now, if that doesn't happen, then Vice Admiral Anil Chopra is the next most senior Vice Admiral. He's the Eastern Naval Commander. Since yesterday, most of us journalists have been hearing that Vice Admiral Anil Chopra's name is also, one of the front runners, in this very, very dynamic situation. Now, there are two lines of succession, and we call them lines of succession because in the Indian military, it's the seniority principle that counts in the appointment of a chief. And as a result of which, Admiral Joshi's retirement a full 18 months before he was due to actually retire in August 2015 means that the succession line is completely changed. The next Navy chief would have been Vice Admiral Satish Soni, who's currently the Southern Naval Commander. But now with Admiral Joshi retiring well ahead of his stipulated date of retirement, Satish Soni probably cannot hope to be the chief unless the MOD steps in at this time and decides to supersede senior officers and appoint Satish Soni the chief. But given just how controversial the entire situation is right now, I'm skeptical about whether the MOD will burn any more fingers as far as the appointment process is concerned, PM.
Thank you very much, Shiv. And certainly a situation that is unprecedented, as Gaurav and Shiv reporting over there, particularly because of the kind of chaos it throws the lines of succession into. Gaurav, coming back to you on this story. Now, the two senior most officers in the Indian Navy taking moral responsibility, stepping down as you were reporting over there. In some ways, that also puts pressure on the MOD, because many people pointing fingers at the Ministry of Defence as well.
You're spot on there, Peer. It is the Ministry of Defence that has to shoulder a part of this responsibility, and the Defence Minister A.K. Antony himself. He was at the helm of affairs for a decade. In this past decade, there are crucial deals that should have been signed, and Defence Minister A.K. Antony wants to be seen as being very proper, but because he's being so proper, he's ensured that the Air Force did not get its MMRCA, the fighters it desperately requires, giving another lease of life to the aging MiG-21 fleet. The Indian Army hasn't got its artillery, the 155mm howitzers, whether towed or self-propelled, that it needs for 2 decades, but nobody's being able to take a decision post the Bofors scandal, or the Indian Navy that needed the Scorpion submarines, and that decision also postponed so much that instead of 2012, these submarines are now expected to be a part of the Indian Navy fleet only in 2017, giving another lease of life to these aging HDW submarines and the Kilo class submarines. So clearly there is a crisis, and clearly A.K. Antony has some explaining to do here.